Hello world, and we are back. My name's Kyle Fischl. This is going to be episode 211 of my poker vlog. For this one, I have a decent amount of hands to go over, so we're going to get right into it. We arrive at Sarasota, Florida, the One-Eyed Jack's poker room for a 2-5 session, hoping to keep the winning streak alive. And on the first hand of note, I'm in the cutoff with a button straddle. It folds to me. I look down at ace-queen offsuit. I'm going to raise this one 4x. I make it $40 in a room where there's no rake if the hand does not go to the flop. I think it's better to size up a little bit bigger, take the hand down pre-flop, avoid the drop. So that's one of the reasons why I choose 40 here. The button is undeterred. He makes the call, and we go heads up to a flop, which comes Jack 10-6 rainbow. On Jack 10 boards with ace-king and ace-queen, they're one of our better bluffing candidates because any card that improves us is going to give us the nut straight or top pair good kicker. So totally fine with c-betting this one at a high frequency, but this time I choose to check. Being out of position, checking is going to give us a lot of information on our opponent's hand strength with the size he chooses to stab with, and we are almost assuredly good if he checks back. But our opponent bets $55, and versus this sizing, I think he's heavily weighted towards top pair, maybe king jack, sometimes some strong 10s, and hands like 8-9, 7-8. Zero showdown value, but high equity hands like a bigger sizing on this one. Either way, with ace-queen, I'm not folding. Plenty of good turn cards and runouts where we're going to steal it later on. When I make the call, the turn is the ace of clubs, so we bink top pair immediately. But our opponent continues betting. He bets $80. I suppose king-queen would like to play this way, bet big when they have no showdown value, and bet a little bit smaller with relation to the size of the pot compared to the flop bet, but when we turn top pair and we have a gutter to the nuts, we're never folding, so we make the call for $80, and the river is the 3 of hearts. We have no betting lead, so we're going to check it to our opponent, see what he wants to do, and when he checks, I fast roll my hand, just believe I'm best here almost always, and indeed on this one we are. We start out with a decent win, moving in the right direction. Following that, I switch tables to one with better lighting, although I don't have the best angle yet. And as you can see, I record this a little bit late because I look down at Jack 7 of spades in the cutoff when an early position player makes it $15 and 4 other players call. I'm definitely in there. Hand plays fine multi-way. We either flop huge or we can just get away from it. And we are going 6 ways to a flop, which comes queen 6-4. We smash a flush, jack high at that, so very strong one. And on this one, it checks all the way to me. I'm going to go very small here because I want multiple players in there. I don't want to price out any hand like pocket 7s with a single spade, 5-3, weak queens, all kinds of stuff that's straight drawing dead, and may fold to a pot size or over pot size bet. The double-edged sword to this is we don't really protect against the single ace or king of spades, but protect is kind of not the correct word for it because those hands are going to call pretty much any bet size anyway. So really we're just missing out a little bit of value on that to try to include the hands that are drawing dead. And with 5 other opponents to get that value from, we're hoping that a lot of people stick around. To the $20, the button decides to call and the small blind decides to call. Everyone else folds, so we are 3 ways to a turn card. I'm hoping it's clean so I can really size up on this one, but it turns out it's the 6 of diamonds. And now, devastatingly, the small blind leads for 40. I think small leads are often draws trying to name their own price, but that mostly applies to flop leads. A turn lead on a nut-changing card is quite different. I actually think this opponent likely has 6-7 with a spade, maybe 5-6 with a spade. And sometimes he just has pocket 4s and filled up. Doesn't want to risk this checking through and bets really small to get all the hands drawing dead now versus a full house. I'm definitely calling the $40. It's not a big enough bet to get my flush to fold even when the board pairs, but then the button continues for a second time. I actually really hate this because on this specific session, the button had played 2 hands the entire time. One was quads and one was a straight flush. I kid you not, he's played 2 hands and he's had 2 high hands in this room today, playing for about an hour and a half. So I don't even think tight is the right word to describe this guy.
Tight, yeah!
But either way, we are 3 ways to a river card, which is a queen of clubs.
Oh, great Odin's raven!
Like, we flop a flush, and then the runout gives us, like, not even a bluff catcher. It's just dust. Thankfully for me, the small blind checks. This doesn't actually mean we're good. He could just have a 6 that's afraid of queens full. I check. Maybe I can get to showdown and win. But no, the button bets $175. When it folds to me, I'm in agony. The last week and a half to 2 weeks of live play, not on camera, I've had flopped 2-pair counterfeit 9 or 10 times. So now to have a flush basically counterfeit is quite irksome in my short-term runnings. I tell myself over and over again that he just has the ace of spades. He's only showed the mega nuts, so he has to at least put a bluff out sometime, right? I tell it to myself a few times and then just decide that, no, he's betting into 2 people. Even someone who knows how to correctly utilize an image they've built probably isn't bluffing into 2 people on this board. I just fold, and my opponent shows ace-6 offsuit with the ace of spades. So some high-level run ban on this one. I think that no matter how I play this hand, the ace-6 with the ace of spades is never folding to any line, any bet size, besides occasionally just lead jamming river, which even then might not work. Alright, we get the good seat, and now we are greeted with pocket kings in middle position, and early position player raises to $20. I am always 3-betting kings, especially in position. I make it 60. The pre-flop aggressor is the only caller. So we are heads up to a flop, which is 10-4-3 rainbow. Very happy about this flop. No ace means that we are likely good here. We don't have the king of clubs, so we're going to size up a little bit, try to get value and protection against club draws, get value against ace-10, pocket jacks, pocket queens. So I continue for $60, and my opponent does not take too long before calling. When the turn is the 7 of hearts, I think it's pretty much a brick. I don't really expect this opponent to open 5-6, and especially not call a 3-bet with 5-6. So if he chooses to play that wide against 3-bets out of position, he's just going to get the money on this one. At this point, my opponent has about $500 in his stacks, so we are trying to get all the money in by the river, and we're going to start with a $175 turn bet. When my opponent calls, I still think he has all the ace-10, all the overpairs, and some ace-x, king-x of clubs sometimes. So I'm happy to see him call, and the river is the 4 of spades. Pretty good one, reduces the possibility of him having a set, but strangely enough, my opponent leads for $100. And he only has 325 total, so he left 225 behind. To me, this just screams ace-10 that's trying to get to showdown cheap, and we're going to be greedy on this one. We're going for the 225. I announce all in, and my opponent takes a few seconds and then calls. I confidently show my hand, and it takes my opponent another few seconds to roll over pocket 10s.
Ow! Knights of Columbus, that hurt!
So we lose a massive pot, and we are relatively buried at this point. But that's okay, we're under the gun. We look down at ace-jack offsuit. With a button straddle, there's 1 limp. I raise to $40. 1 late position player, the button and the limper call. So I'm going 4 ways to a flop, which is ace-10-4 with 2 clubs. I think the best play is to check because we're out of position here, but we can't get back to even by checking. So I go for a small bet here, $45, try to get value from clubs, any 2 Broadway cards that have a gut shot, maybe a 10, all kinds of stuff. And to this bet, the button raises to $100.
Shit.
Fucking hell.
A small raise in position on a somewhat draw-heavy board. Everyone else folds, and it's kind of dicey, but I'm not folding for $55, especially when I have a pair of aces, good kicker. When I make the call, the turn is the 3 of spades. I check it to my opponent, not really sure what to expect out of them after the very small check raise on the flop. But on this one, he checks it back. So I'm feeling pretty confident about my hand at this point. But the river is the deuce of hearts. I mean, I could never imagine this guy having a 5 here, but weirder things have happened. Maybe ace-5 just raises to find out where they're at and slows down when they pick up a gut shot and smack the gut shot. Same thing with ace-deuce for 2 pair. I check it, and my opponent bets $175. At this point, I'm just hoping he has one of the Broadway holdings, one of the club draws, hands that raised to try to get a free turn card, and then show up at the river with no showdown value and have to bet to be able to win. Hoping I'm against one of those, I make the call, and this time my opponent has 7-8 of spades. Yes, it is spades, not clubs. So very creative bluff raise on the flop. Maybe just watching me get stacked made my opponent believe that I'm a little bit gun shy, but there's no fear in me no matter how deep into the hole I go. On the next hand of note, I looked at a pocket kings again from middle position. With 1 limp, I raised to $25. The button, the big blind, and the limper call, so I'm going 4 ways to a flop of queen 4-3 with 2 diamonds. So somewhat similar to the last hand where someone flopped a set on me. This one is slightly different. Pocket queens should have 3 bets, so we can kind of discount that. And we have the king of diamonds to fall back on. so that reduces some of the flush draw combinations my opponents might have. When it checks to me, I bet $25. I can size down here, not too much to need to protect against, and the button raises to $75. Man, sometimes you just feel like you're being picked on at a poker table. We're not folding pocket kings even to a raise, so when it folds back to me, I make the call. The turn is the 3 of diamonds. Pairs the board and gives me a king high flush draw. So if for some reason my opponent had like ace x of diamonds, I do have 4 full house outs. But when my opponent bets $150, I'm still not folding. I have kings. Hopefully my opponent has a strong queen, maybe 5-6 or ace-5 at some frequency, as we've seen some creative bluffs at this table. So I made the call for $150, and the river is the 3 of hearts. This is the money card. Please have ace-queen. Ace-queen's going to bet so big and never fold to my raise. And if he somehow has quads, I mean, good for him. But I just think there's so much value in getting it in on this one. When I check to my opponent, I'm preparing the biggest barrel ever, and he checks it back. Dang it, I did consider leading on this river for fear that like 10s or jacks would check back here. But when I show my hand, my opponent checked back with pocket 4s. I guess you can never be too careful. Third nuts, where there's just tons of hands that are going to pay you, is not strong enough for some people to be able to bet themselves on the river. I win a small one battling back before. I look down at king-queen offsuit from the button. When I straddle, an early position player makes it $35 and there's 2 callers. We are definitely 3-betting this one. We don't need to do the perfect like 150, 180 because we're not really trying to steal the dead money and end it here. We'd actually like to see 3 people put $100 in and play a bigger pot in position with a pretty strong hand. And to the $100, the first guy folds, second guy folds, and the third guy folds. Well, at least we made $105 back with a somewhat light 3-bet, which was not really intended to be a squeeze play, but I guess it worked out. On a final hand of note, we look down at pocket aces in the big blind. With button straddle, I raised to $40. The cutoff and button decide to call, so we're 3 ways to a flop, which comes jack 8-7 with 2 spades. Not my favorite board. Think this definitely connects heavily with some limp callers. And out of position with a board that doesn't favor me, we're definitely going to check it to our opponents. And the button bets $50. We're not folding aces. I think we've made that clear by now. No matter how many sets my opponents flop on my overpairs, I will not fold them. When I make the call, the other player folds, and the turn is the 6 of diamonds. Now the opponent bets $200. I mean, it's getting dicier, but 2 spades, 2 hearts. Maybe my opponent has a random jack. Maybe my opponent has pocket 9s or pocket 10s. Those might put in the second barrel on this board when checked to. So I called the $200, and the river is the queen of hearts. Both flush draws miss, but queen jack gets there. Not too many other 2-pair combinations that I'm worried about. When I check it to my opponent, see what he wants to do, he checks it back and shows jack 9 of diamonds. So on this one, I faded like 20 something outs. He had the whole world, and I'm just happy I was able to hold on for this one. But one hand that happened off camera, I flopped 2 pair and got it all in versus a flush draw. Who hit a flush? So that would be another $1,000 going to my opponents, which would bring my total to a $2,100 loss today, across 5 hours, equating to $420 an hour or 84 big blinds an hour. Yeah, the last hand that I alluded to, I actually had 9-7, and the flop was king 9-7 with 2 diamonds. It was a 3-bet pot, which maybe I shouldn't be in there with 9-7 when we're facing 3 bets, but it was against a player that I thought definitely had some of the looser 3 bets in his range. And when we get this flop and he leads, we just get it in there. He happened to have queen jack of diamonds and he turns a diamond and we're basically dead and we don't improve. Yeah, when you're kind of running bad at a table, it seems like some medium pots help you battle back and you get close to the even mark, you keep trying. But then sometimes you just get one absolute knockout blow that hits you that you just know it's not your day and you can't recover. So after this hand was definitely the wake-up call for me to not try to push it anymore. Just take the L and hopefully come back another day. If you've made it all the way to this point, thank you for watching. I appreciate every view I get. I do have some fun winning videos coming up, so stay tuned for that, and I will see you on the next one.